Okay, hey everybody. I really wanted to go live today. I got some Kleenex here handy just in case I need it, because I want to talk about some things that I don't usually talk about. And for everybody watching, anybody who is watching, I am on Instagram and I'm also on Zoom going live to my Facebook group. And I just thought I would do it in both places. And so, one of the things that I don't talk about as much anymore is really the real pain that I was in when I first became a mom. And, my kids are teenagers now, right? So it is tough when your kids are younger, or when your kids are older, you kind of forget those experiences. And I thought, I haven't shared it for a while. And I really want to, share some things with you because I really want you to know you're not alone. And I don't want anybody ever to think that, I'm somebody that has, sort of just appeared on this parenting scene, if you will, thinking that I know all the answers, because I don't, and I didn't. And I came from being a really, really angry mom. And that's not who I am. And it wasn't who I wanted to be. Before I became a mom, of course, I was the perfect mother, right? As many people are. And then when I became a mom, I realized I didn't know anything. And this little being, this beautiful little boy who was born with a full head of red hair, kicked my butt so hard. And so I am here today to just really talk to you about some of those experiences. And my intention is for you to not feel alone, and for you to, if you are feeling some of the things that I felt and you have experienced some of the things that I've experienced, that you also feel like there's hope for you too, because there really is. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how things started for me. And so, really, for me, my story starts with my first son, Parker. And he, for anybody who knows him, he has grown into this beautiful, wonderful boy who is 16, almost 17, and is just, here's a picture of him when he was little. Look at that little turkey. Look at that little guy. Isn't he adorable? Okay, there he is. I have all these little pictures at my desk. Anyway, so when I had him, I was 11 days overdue to start. So I went in at 10 days. That's as far as they'll let you go. And then after 2 days in labor, day number 10 and then day number 11, it was clear that I wasn't going to be able to have him a normal, I don't want to use any, anyway, the way you're supposed to have them. I wasn't able to have a vaginal birth. And that was really hard for me because I was scared. I was really, really scared. And I had heard some things about, the way the brain needs to be squeezed, and that starts sort of the synapses in the brain. And I was worried if my son didn't have that, what did that mean for his behavior? And what did that mean for the future? Right. And I actually have never been hysterical before in my life, except for that moment. I was hysterical when I found out that I had to have a C-section. And later on, the doctor told us that if we were in a third world country or in another time and place, my husband would have had to make the decision between me and the child. And that is so scary to hear that. Like I needed to have a C-section. Thank God there was, I was able to have one. And so I had never even been in the hospital before, and I'd never had an IV before. And I had been in hospitals before, and actually one where I was helping with a grant proposal for the company that I worked for before, I fainted on the guy from the foundation. I feel like that's how, hospitals were not good. And I had this fainting problem, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say because I think of myself as being pretty strong. Anyway, and I just remember, like, it was so primal, like people are coming in and they're doing things to you, and there's all this stuff that I didn't expect, and it's like your body isn't yours anymore. And I remember having my first shower and having to ask my husband to pull my underwear up for me. Of course, the hospital underwear, those mesh, if you know. And I was just like devastated. I never felt so vulnerable and embarrassed. And I mean, my husband and I have been together a long time, but still, it was something that was so new. And it was like the one start of that shame spiral. It was like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it the way I'm supposed to do it. I had to have a C-section. Then I couldn't nurse him. And I was in so much pain. And as you know, right, your uterus contracts every time you're nursing. And it was excruciating pain for me. And I couldn't do it. And I felt judged. I felt like a loser. I felt like I wasn't good enough. Their shame spiral even more. And then my son, he would not be quiet. He would not be, he wouldn't sleep through the night. He wouldn't be comforted by me. Oh my goodness. The one thing that I wanted to do was hold my baby and comfort my baby and love on my baby. And I couldn't do that because he wouldn't stop crying, and embarrassingly so. And I remember going out with my sister-in-law, and we had a really rough friendship at this time because I felt like she just handled this motherhood with so much more grace than I did. And here I was struggling every second of every day. And we went to a mall, and Parker started crying in the food court. And I was so embarrassed. I couldn't get him to stop. I thought everybody was looking at me. It was just humiliation. And so, you know, you start to tell yourself things. You start to tell yourself, well, like, you're a loser and you're the worst. And you can't even do this right. Now, add to that the fact that my son was full on from the beginning. He was full on from the beginning. And, you know, what I know now is that a lot of kids are just like this, right? A lot of, you know, therapy that I've had and therapists and help that we've gotten, you know, a lot of them ask about birth trauma, which there was. And then a lot of them also ask about, you know, what they were like when they were little. And he was like this from the start. So I kind of feel in a way like I didn't even have a chance. I didn't, you know, and I'm somebody who loves love. Like, I love the love. I love it when our, you know, when we're happy and we're cuddling and we're doing things like that. Like, that's like, I love that stuff. And so he was the kid that I would hold him. And I remember taking him for swimming lessons, hold him, and he'd just always be looking away. He'd look at everybody but me. He didn't want to connect with me. And it took me a year to feel like I actually connected with him. And as somebody like for me, I'm a love bug, like I've just said, right? Like I have, you know, I wear these love buttons around when I go out, and I give them to people because they, you know, I want people to feel loved, right? Anyway. And so I felt like a failure, and it was so hard. And the thing that I didn't expect was the anger. I thought maybe it would be tough for me. Like, I knew that I had a temper, right? So that's the thing. When you're a big feeler, you feel high highs and sometimes low lows. And so I would get really angry because he wouldn't listen to me. And, you know, the first year was tough because we weren't connecting. The second year was a little bit better, but then I got pregnant with my other son. And, you know, that in and of itself was a really big decision because of how hard it was to raise our son. And I do really remember raising him, you know, in those first few years and thinking like, I don't know how people do this. Thankfully, I think you kind of get one of each. That's sort of my theory. You get one of each. You get one who's easy and one who's not so easy. And thankfully, my second, Aiden, was much easier. And it wasn't like super really overwhelming because my son was, you know, anyway, it wasn't like adding 10 more kids. It was kind of like, no, not much change because he was so easy. Anyway, so what I wanted to really tell you, and I want to make sure that I stay focused on what it is that I want to say, is that there were times where I would get so mad that I would scream and I would shake. And I remember little things like, so there was a store here, I'm Canadian in case you didn't know, called Zellers. It's like Kmart, it's like Target, right? I love Zellers. It's gone now, and I loved it. And there was this ottoman that we had. It was like a coffee table ottoman, and you could flip the sections, and it could be like a hard surface, and then inside were two more little ottomans. And So I had been watching those nanny shows ahead of time, right? And there was the naughty step and the naughty stool. And so when I started to punish my son was right around the age of 2, which I always say to parents, like, that's when they start to piss you off. That's when, we start to put punishments in place. And I was no different. And I'll never forget this. I started to use this naughty step, right? And I would take him and I would put him on the naughty step and say, you stay there for 1 minute. And he didn't understand, but he wouldn't listen. And so then I would get even more mad. I'm like, you stay here, until I actually broke this. Now, it was flimsy, but I broke it because I would just put him down so forcefully because he wasn't listening and he didn't know what to do. And I figured, well, every kid on the nanny show sits there and listens. Why is it that I can't get my kid to listen? So I remember the saddest thing, and I'll use this button as a prop. I remember him it was a Play-Doh little shell. You put the Play-Doh in, make it a little, clamp it down, make a little shell. And he took that little shell and he put it on the naughty step and he was talking to it like I was talking to him. And he's like, da da da, da 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 da. And I thought, whoa, he's playing through what, we just talked about, or what I just did. And I remember one time getting so mad at him. Again, it was right around the age of 2. I'm thinking, like, I can remember the room I was in with him, and he wanted to put his pants on himself, but it wasn't happening fast enough for him. So I just grabbed him and I put his pants on him, and it was rough with him and I was mean to him. And then immediately I was like, what am I doing? Why? But I didn't know. I didn't know any different. And so there would be these times where I had like this blind rage with him. He just wouldn't listen to me. And it was all I could do not to hit my own kid, it was all I could do not to hit him, because he wouldn't listen and he just wouldn't do what I said. And here's what I'll tell you. I would yell and I would rage. I'll say what I was just about to say for a second. And then I would just feel so bad. And I'd sit, once the boys were in bed, I would sit and I would just cry and cry and cry and cry. Tell my husband, like, I have to do better. I have to do better. I have to do better. But I couldn't do better. I just couldn't do better. And I'm just looking for a book. Hold that thought. Just 1 second. Okay, I have the book. Okay. So I would sit there and I'd cry, and I like, the pain was so much. I really thought, hey, I think that I need to just leave. I can just leave the family. They're better off without me. I was very depressed, probably had postpartum, but I didn't know. One of the things that did happen, though, that made me feel like, okay, maybe I'm not the worst human in the world, but it didn't really stop because I just kept telling myself that I was, is that my doctor said, he said, have you wanted to throw him out the window yet? And I'm like, oh, I do. How did you know? Like, how did you know? And we laughed, but he was like, yeah, I know, it's hard. It's really hard. I was like, whoa, okay, somebody actually gets it. So I'm sitting there night after night after night saying I should probably leave. And my default setting is always to be pretty happy and pretty upbeat. Like, that's just how I am. I'm friendly, I'm happy, I like to joke, I like to laugh. And so I really, I was like living 2 lives, and I hid away from people who I would have close relationships with. I would be walking my kids to school and crying on the way back, or even crying on the way to school, because getting my kids to school was just a nightmare every single day. Every day I would get my son up to this day, and he's grouchy and he's rude and he's not nice. And I took it personally all the time. And so I would avoid those moms at school, and I didn't want to talk to anybody, and pushed my friends and family away. My mom would write, or not write, but she'd cut out little articles for me on why yelling was bad for your kids. Like, yeah, mom, I know. And I remember, oh my gosh, like having to, like punish him for doing things that he didn't know better, and doing that at my parents' house, and being in a separate room, and closing him in that room, and him yelling and screaming and kicking, and I was devastated, like embarrassed beyond belief. And so I want to tell you the words that I think saved my life, the words that changed everything for me. So I love Oprah. And Oprah is one of those people who I feel like I've learned a lot from. And I saw a parenting expert on Oprah, and I bought her book. So Dr. Shefali was on Oprah, and she was talking about parenting. And I bought her book because I liked what she said, but I let the book sort of sit to the side because I thought, you're just another book that's going to tell me that I am wrong and that I'm the one that needs to change. And by the way, I did have, I had gone to therapy. I had taken antidepressants. So I saw her, I had the book, and I had in this therapy, different people had told me it was all my fault, and all of this stuff. And I just felt terrible. And then we bought this book, 123 Magic. Well, 123 Magic was the worst thing that it was the worst thing for our family. It was a trigger for my son. He's like, no, don't let me be on 2. Don't let me be on 2. I'm on 1, or, whatever, like, don't put me on 3. I want to be on 2. It was just a disaster. And, now my son, as many of you know, and we don't, like, I don't have a problem talking about this, and he's so beautiful that he lets me talk about it. He does struggle with obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a really big, it's debilitating. And thankfully we've finally, after about 10 years, gotten some really good help for him. But he has depression, anxiety. The anxiety is the OCD, but he also has ADHD, and he has oppositional defiance, and he has learning disabilities. And, these things usually come when you have ADHD, they usually come with a friend. And so he was so hard. And I think of him as my gift, like my greatest gift. And not only is he, like, he's made me want to be a better person. And there are days I don't want anymore. I don't need any more gifts, right? Like, I don't need to learn anymore. So I'll tell you, there are some days that it's a struggle. Back to what I was saying though, with Dr. Shefali. So these are the words that saved my life. Oh God, I don't know if I can get through them. I'm gonna try my best, okay? This is why I don't do this very much, because I'm a crier. Accept my child is different. I accept my child is quiet. I accept my child can be stubborn. I accept my child takes time to warm up to things and people. I accept my child gets upset quickly. So there are all of these. I accept that my child is moody. I accept that my child is defiant. And then what really got me is I accept that I have limitations and shortcomings, and that's okay. I accept that I don't always know the right way. I accept that I frequently lose my center worse than my child. And so there were so many here, and nobody had ever talked to me that way. I've never heard anybody say that it's okay to accept it. I thought I had to change it. I didn't know that I could accept my shortcomings, that I could heal, but I didn't have to change who I was. I didn't have to change who he was. I could help him. I could relate to him in a different way. And so after some time, I told my kids, which is kind of funny because my book is The Yelling Cure. I told my kids, I went to see her live, sorry. And she was such a transformational experience to see her live. I loved it. And I came home and I said to my boys, I said, okay, you guys, listen, I want to tell you something. Like mommy has struggled a little bit, and mommy has been really, angry sometimes, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm never going to yell again. I'm never going to yell at you again. And maybe you've guessed it, but I 5 minutes later was yelling again. And it was, I was just like, what is wrong with me? Now I know there's a better way, and I can't do that. But I felt so strongly about it. And actually, right at this time, somebody who I love and I admire and I respect so much, Dr. Vanessa LaPointe, she's on Instagram and on Facebook here as Dr. Vanessa. She was our psychologist, and she did the psych ed assessment on my son. And that's how we found out that he has ADHD and learning disabilities and so on. And then from there, we went on to other therapy and stuff. And she actually was there at the same conference I was at. And it was such a beautiful moment. We were probably the only 2 Canadians there, which was kind of cool. But because she and I had this experience together, I was able to sort of say, okay, look, like, I think, like I need some more help and whatever. And luckily at this event, there were parent coaches there. Well, I had never heard of a parent coach, and these parent coaches, they were all over me because I was like this. I was a mess the entire time. And I did meet one, and I decided, okay, I will make the investment. I will make the investment in helping myself. And I had to ask my husband, and we had to talk about it. We had to figure out the money situation and stuff. And so so working with her is what changed my life. Lisa Smith. Working with her really changed my life. And I remember, as part of the work and part of the healing, I had to let go of some of the things that I was holding on to, some of the pain, some of the regret, some of the stuff I was still beating myself up for. And she said, okay, so, we talked about what my biggest deal was, what my biggest frustration and sadness and, heartbreak was. And I said, I've already ruined my kids. Like they've already been ruined, because what I knew to be true was that those foundational years, 0 to 5, are the most important years that you are imprinting on your child, and you are creating their personality. And those are the most important years in life, period. End of story. Like, that's it. And so I thought, like, that's it. And I thought I was the reason why Parker acted the way he did. I thought for sure, because I'd been so dysfunctional. I'd been so angry. I'd been so up and down. Like, I love you so much. And then, like, get away from me. You were so frustrating. You're just such a bad kid. That was like the vibe that I was giving him. And she said, is it true? I'm like, yeah, it's true. And she's like, are you willing to let it go? And I said, no, I'm not willing to let that go. And she's like, you're like, you can't tell me, and these are the words she used, in a court of law, you can't prove to me that you have ruined your child. And by the way, we know, because of brain science, that actually it's never too late. Now will you let it go? And I'm like, no. And then she said, which was the question, she said, what is it costing you? It's costing me everything. I am constantly beating myself up. I hate myself. I hate being a mom. I hate what I've done. I hate my behavior. I hate everything. So she said, okay, I've got to let it go. So I did. And although there were times where I indulge in a little guilt, I indulge in a little reflection about the way things were, and I wish that I had the skills and the tools that I have now when they were little. I have them now. And I can tell you that even though my son still is the same, he still is hard. He still argues. He's very argumentative. He's very smart, but he struggles in school. He is very challenging, very oppositional. He is a no before he is a yes. Always. He is always a no before he's a yes. But now I know that I can just wait. I'll just wait a second. It's not personal. It's just the way his brain works. It's just the way he is. I also know that when he's really anxious, I need to get to what's underneath that. And I am able to, and it's kind of amazing. I have a really great husband. And my husband was more calm when the kids were younger, which is also why it was so hard for me. Like, why am I the one who's losing it all the time? Why aren't you? Right? He wasn't losing it. I was. Now, if we need to go somewhere and I need to call, he'll call the kids, he'll get the kids ready, whatever, our two boys, and they won't listen. And then he'll get frustrated and he's like, I don't know where they are or whatever. And then I literally go and I do what I say to do for everybody. Go and connect first. Then you make your request and then you take them. And I'll be like, because like Parker will have come or Aiden will have come, right? It's like incredible how it works. So it's really incredible how well it works even now. And I say it all the time, right? Like it really works. And so, and I'm able to stay calm, even though sometimes I still get anxious. Like I still get anxious sometimes when Parker is at me, like he will come at us because there's so much going on with him. And, it hasn't been an easy road to find the right medication, the right therapy for him. So we've had times where he's been very, very difficult. And and I don't want to talk about him that much, but I have to talk about him, right? And I try to keep my kids private. You don't see a ton of pictures of me with my kids because I keep it private. But it's important that you know that I have lived with a dysfunctional situation at home for a long time. And I have a beautiful connection with both my kids. They come to me, they love me, of course, all of our kids love us, but they talk to me, they confide in me. And when there is a problem, I can sort it out with them always, even if we have to come back to it, right? And it doesn't mean I don't get mad sometimes. He's maddening. He's very frustrating. But I remember always not to take it personal. Now, I know that I didn't screw him up from the start. He came out this way, literally, he came out this way. It's not my fault, right? Maybe that's the same one. And I can accept him just for who he is, right where he is, without wanting to change him. And just that acceptance, like, I accept you, beautiful boy, I accept you. And just that acceptance on its own is enough for him to just sort of settle down, because he knows that he's loved and he's lovable, right? And he knows that that there's nothing he can do, right? And so that is the transformation for me, is that I can now go and solve any problem in parenting with my son, any problem. And it doesn't always look perfect, but we meet each other. I meet him where he is, not where where there's other expectations. And there are still times where I'm hurt by other people when their kids are achieving things that mine doesn't. That does hurt sometimes. But here's the thing. You can have fun with your kids. You can have a wonderful relationship with them, and you can come to a full new relationship with them and love them and enjoy them and get them to cooperate and get them to pitch in and get them to, be contributing members of the family and hold standards for them and all that kind of stuff, right? So there is a way to do it all. And I just want you to know that if you are feeling the way I've showed you that I feel, you don't have to feel alone. You don't have to feel alone. So I just want to share that with you.